Hey, it's Dave. In this video, we're going to take a look at how I set up the middle level of this 2x4 foot N scale layout to have both handheld DC and DCC control, using a selector switch to choose which one you want to use. But also, this is going to be a story of a lot of failure, a lot of frustration, a lot of electronics murder most foul, and eventual sort of success. Let's watch. So anyway, this was supposed to be a pretty straightforward project. Effectively, all I had to deal with was 2 wires from the DCC system going to the track and 2 wires from the DC system. So I used a simple double pull, double throw toggle switch to basically take those 4 wires as inputs, and then you can select which of those you want to have flow to the track itself. So a very straightforward process, not a lot of wires involved. Everything should have gone pretty easily, but it did not. So this DC throttle is by Gauge Master, and same thing that I have here, a panel mounted version. They're actually the same exact circuit boards. One's in a controller, in this case 2 are on a panel, although one's missing, which is a story I'll get to shortly. However, the issue is that there's, again, 2 wires coming in for AC power, like 14 to 18 volts AC, and then 2 wires going out for your variable DC control that go to the track. But when it actually came time to hook up the wires, because the wires coming in on the AC adapter were red and black, I automatically connected those to the red and black wires on the handheld throttle, and not to the yellow and blue wires like I should have. And so the end result of that was that I sent the AC power into what's supposed to be the DC output, and that fried the board in here. And so that wasn't good. And so basically I ruined this handheld throttle. Probably it could be fixed by replacing a component, but I fixed that by replacing it with that other board. And I'll eventually put everything back and get a new one, and it'll be fine. But for now, I got it to work. So that problem was solved. But before I did that, when I was wiring everything, I decided to use one of these Roku hand throttles, which sort of works the same way, except that it has batteries inside of it as well. And I was like, well, I'll hook this up to the plug, and I can use that for testing until I develop something else. This also takes power in and has power out. And so I was like, all right, great. I'll hook up the power in to the Roku hand throttle using the appropriate, you have to use less voltage in on this one, but I had the adapter for that, so no problem there. But in this case, the way I messed things up was to reverse the polarity. So instead of positive going to positive and negative to negative, I reversed those, and that effectively put the power coming in from the wall adapter as well as the batteries in series instead of in parallel. And so what I ended up doing was putting like 24 volts to the track. So I had my GP38 on the track for testing, and so poof, there goes the DCC board. Although I didn't know that's what happened at the time. It just didn't work at all. And so I was, well, that's really weird. Maybe like something was messed up with the pickup. So I took the AC 4400, put that on the track, and crackle pop, nothing. It's like, and then there was a smell. I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And so I backtracked at that point and realized that I had too much voltage going to the track, and I fried 2 DCC boards. So now I have 2 DCC locomotives that don't work at all, and I have new boards coming in that I'll have to replace them with. Again, I eventually got the new board in here, or the board from here into this throttle, hooked up the wires correctly this time, paying very close attention to what I was doing. Now everything works. I can plug it in. I can control everything with either throttle, and it works fine. But I made a lot of expensive mistakes that were just stupid mistakes, not paying attention to voltage, not paying attention to polarity and what wires I was hooking up, trying to do everything too fast. Wasn't thinking, and then made mistakes multiple times. So I caused a lot of damage, and yeah, things didn't go great. But anyway, I did eventually get everything working, and so now it works great, and I will eventually fix all the things I broke. But lessons learned, I guess. And so now let's take a look at how I actually did everything. Okay, so there's different steps I got to do here before I install anything on a layout. First, I have to hook up a plug to this DC handheld controller. So I have this 4-pin plug, and receptacle here that this will go on the layout. This will get attached to this cord, so you can plug it into here and have your connection. So I'll have to work on that. So connecting the wires to here, connecting wires from here that I can run through the bottom of the layout. And then I'm going to have this adapter on the back of the layout that I can plug in a power supply, which will obviously eventually connect to this inside the layout. So I want to get a lot of this stuff wired up, heat shrink tubing put on everything, get everything ready to go, and then I can run the wires, drill the holes in the layout, put the plugs in, run the wires through, and make the connections. So the only thing to be careful with here is that you have to, with this plug, you have to make sure you have things consistent. So I'm using wires that are basically the same color as what is in this cable. And so I have to make sure that when I plug stuff together, I have, say, like a black wire here and a black wire here, red here and red here. So everything is the same on both sides. And this way I don't mix anything up in the final wiring. Now I'm going to make sure I have all little stray wires clipped off best I can. And so there is some parts where the insulation got cut off, and I have the liquid electrical tape somewhere. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that liquid tape on there. Just kind of actually coat everything pretty good, because we're also going to cover it with this metal sleeve. So any little wires sticking out could contact the metal sleeve and then short out one of the other wires. So I'm going to take some electrical tape here and just fatten up this wire. So when I cinch down on the screw terminals, it'll have something to kind of bite into. So if I can get this to slide in, so perhaps I can get this screw in. Now I can't find the screwdriver. This ring goes down here. All right, so now this will be mounted to the layout. So then I'll just be able to plug this in when I want to use the throttle, or you can unplug it and then, not use it, put it away, whatever you want to do. And we should be good to go. Anyway, let's do some drilling. Okay, so let's just review how I have everything wired up here for switching between DC and DCC control of the middle level, which is the primary switching area on the layout. So this toggle switch is a double pole, double throw toggle switch. So the leads here in the middle are what go to the track. And then if I connect the DCC system to this side and the output from the DC controller to this side, then depending on which way I have the switch thrown, it will basically connect these wires to the middle or these wires to the middle, and then alternate what power goes to the track while cutting off the other one. So it works pretty nice, pretty straightforward. And then I have, this is the power going into the power cab from the wall, which will go through a plug on the back of the layout. And then these wires here provide the power to the handheld controller, again, coming from a wall-mounted adapter that goes to a plug on the back of the layout. And so this is basically AC power in here, and then we have the DCC control going out, and the DC control going out and these wires here. And then you just flip the switch on this side, and that determines which way the control goes. So if I put the switch towards this jack, then DCC is controlling that loop of the layout. If I flip the switch this way, then the DC throttle is controlling that part of the layout. Now you might be wondering why the wires for DCC are on this side. When I throw the switch this way, it connects to the DC one. And that's just because you have to basically just think of this as a lever going back and forth. So when you have it thrown this way, it's basically connecting this terminal, these two terminals together, and these two terminals together. And then when I throw it this way, it's connecting these two terminals together and these two terminals back here together. Pins that are connected are going to be on the opposite of the side that the actual lever is thrown. So not a big deal. You can always just flip this around or just move the wires to the other side if you have it backwards. But that's how it's set up. So pretty straightforward once everything is done. And so now that I have everything else done, I can make those connections, but I'll just make sure I have a lot of slack in the wire here so I can remove this front panel and not have any issues doing that. And while it might make more sense just to have a plug here to connect these together, that would make more sense essentially in the long run. The reality is I'm going to have a bunch of other controls on here for the turnouts and everything else. I don't really want to have plugs for all of them just because I don't want to do all that extra wiring. So I'm not going to bother with that at this point. Maybe I'll do that later on. Not a hard addition to do down the road. But for now, I just want to get everything soldered and insulated so I don't end up shorting out something and causing more damage than I've already done to this project. And so I am soldering on these extra wires because I will be hooking them up to this other gauge master controller. And these DC controllers will be for these lower tracks down here. And it'll be all on the same power supply. The adapter I have is for 2.5 amps, which is more than enough to run 3 trains. And so I am going to go ahead and allow for that. And so I'll get this attached and the turnout controls attached in another video, but I'm going to go ahead and get these wires ready to attach to here so I won't have to do any additional soldering on these power supplies. So those are done. The only other connection to do is for the DCC power. So I can go ahead and get all these pulled in here and hopefully not have any wires get mushed. Let's see if I can feed these two guys back in as well. The handheld DC throttle just wasn't working at all. Couldn't figure out why. Something on this board that was inside of there got blown. Anyway, so I took this out and I have this other Gauge Master 2 throttle unit, which is actually has identical boards in it. Everything lines up exactly. And so I just popped that one in here. I rigged up some washers and a screw there to use as a heat sink, so it'll just help a little bit. The other one didn't have any heat sink at all. It just cooked the board, so that could have been part of the problem. But so this one, maybe that'll help out just a little bit. But yeah, so this works fine now. I had ordered another one, but maybe I'll cancel that. I'm not sure. Well, I guess I'll probably keep it because I do need to rebuild this board here and put the unit back in there so I can use those 2 DC controllers for the bottom tracks when I'm not using the DCC system. So anyway, this will at least provide a working throttle for now when I'm working on operating the middle level here during construction anyway. So anyway, that's how I got the DC and DCC controls set up for this middle level. Again, I'll be doing basically the same thing for the lower level. These layout projects are opportunities to try out different products and new things and all that. And so I will be using this Gauge Master dual DC controller as a controls for the lower level, again, along with the DCC system. So I will have toggle switches as well for this. Again, hopefully I won't mess things up going forward, but that will allow me to have DC control of the different loops as well as DCC control of the different loops. So anyway, that'll be another video coming up. I will, once I have to get all the replacement parts in, I'll get that done, as well as the push button controls for all the turnouts on this middle level, and we'll hopefully get all the wiring wrapped up and complete. So look for that video in a few weeks, and then progressing with all the structure builds and all the scenery, and hopefully getting this layout a lot closer to being done. But anyway, that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Bye.